Welcome to the Gibberpish podcast. Now, normally when we start an episode, we begin with some kind of technical fault or a comment on something going horribly wrong in the recording. This time it bears a little bit of note, so we're putting it before the intro music. We had a series of technical problems with the last episode recording, and nothing really that bad, but the recording that we had done with myself and Dom was kind of worthless. So, in an attempt to just put out some content to keep you guys ticked over until the next proper episode, I will be solo casting this, and hopefully we can get something worthwhile together for not only this episode, but the next one that comes along as well. So hopefully you guys stay along for the ride. Welcome to the Gibberpish podcast. And we will begin the episode now with a look into just some of the stuff that we almost kind of missed in the last couple of episodes. We try and record as much as we can, but what we are aiming for as a podcast is almost a fluid conversation between people, and we forget things, and we actually forgot to check up on some stuff the last time. So we've missed out bits and pieces from previous episodes, and a lot of it seems to be mine, so I guess the fault's on me for this one. But I was going through a series of checks on stuff just to see what, would be good and interesting to talk about, including stuff like playing Dota 2 and going through the Crunchyroll subscription just to try and check out subbed anime. And I'm sure Dom and I are going to have a discussion at some point on subbed versus dubbed anime, and which benefits we see about each system of viewing the art form of anime. But I did ask Dom for comment on this one, and he said his view on it is that he prefers a dubbed form of anime that you can actually watch and enjoy in English. And I gotta admit, after a Crunchyroll subscription, I kind of agree with him as well. I had never really delved much into the subbed anime category. I did give it a go and tried a show called Punchline, in which a young man lives with, or he dies in the first episode, so I don't really consider it to be a spoiler of any kind, but he dies in the first episode and is charged with, as a spirit, protecting the Earth from a massive meteorite that will destroy the planet. And I was very worried about watching this show because it was basically at some points little more than pornography. It's very exploitative of the female characters that are in the show, with the main premise of the show being that should the main character see their panties more than once, or see more than one set of panties, he would become too energetic or aroused, as a grown-up might say, and he would fail in his mission by his spirit form dissolving and being incapable of saving the Earth through a meteorite. And it wasn't much to really look into. It wasn't that good a show. I enjoyed certain aspects of it, certain characters, and when the show wasn't being entirely a perverse, basically 16-year-old kid who's just in high school, it was actually quite enjoyable. There were action scenes with the various kind of superhero characters that appear throughout the show, very enjoyable. The some of the character interactions were kind of nice. The fact that two of the characters didn't get on due to revelations brought about in the show that I don't really want to spoil for anyone if they do intend to go and watch the show. You can give it a go if you like. Don't take my recommendation as gold on this, because I'm fairly new to the anime, especially the dub pieces, but I didn't enjoy it as much as maybe some might, and it could be worth a go if you're interested in that kind of, staring at women's panties in the anime form. It might be up your street, I don't know. There is a list of other animes that I'll be trying out, not exclusively through Crunchyroll, but I'll be trying to hunt down the current series of Dragon Ball Super, which is the spin-off, or not really a spin-off, it's more of a sequel to the Dragon Ball Z series that Dom and I are huge fans of, and I've been looking forward to this ever since it was announced, and was very surprised at the quick turnaround of events leading between you may get a new Dragon Ball series and here's a new Dragon Ball series ready for you right now, which was made it all the more enjoyable that I could enjoy the show very quickly after it was announced for us in the UK. I am watching that subbed, and I think maybe it's my commitment to the Dragon Ball Z universe and the characters within it that make it very enjoyable for me, and I'm willing to sit down and watch the subbed version of that as opposed to a dubbed version. I don't need the dub here. I know the characters. I don't really need to concentrate too much, and that's what it comes down to. Well, not the busiest person in the world, I do like to try and multitask to try and get the most out of my time. Like right now, I am recording this podcast while playing my way through a little bit of Minecraft, which I'll get onto later on because we had some stuff to talk about that as well during the podcast. I enjoy multitasking. I enjoy trying to push myself mentally into the space of being as efficient as possible. Well, don't read too much into that. It doesn't always work, but I do enjoy trying to multitask, and committing to watching a sub show was a bit too much for me to kind of keep an eye on. I did enjoy it sometimes to try and get the character, and especially with Dragon Ball, I was enjoying the different character voices. Some of it's a little off-putting, but having to sit and watch and commit to engaging with the anime was a little too much sometimes, because I'm trying to multitask, because I guess I'm lazy. I don't want to sit and dedicate time to two different things, and that's part of the problem with being a nerd. You have a lot of hobbies, you have a lot of things that distract you, and trying to commit to just one of those kind of feels like almost a waste of time in some ways. But it's an interesting look, and I can't fault the Crunchyroll service itself. I'm still subscribed for a few more weeks. I do intend to try something else, even if I don't find the right show to watch. I have a list of anime recommendations from colleagues and friends that stretches pretty far back, so I do have some things to watch on that service. But I think it comes down to a discussion not of Crunchyroll itself, but more to do with the actual idea of subbed versus dubbed anime, which might be something Dom and I get into on the show. But I think we're both kind of in agreement that we actually prefer our anime dubbed due to wanting to do it as part of something else in a way. Nevertheless, can't really fault Crunchyroll service. I did contact them with a slight issue that I had on one of their videos, and they actually got back to me really quickly, and I was very impressed by the attention to the customer satisfaction. That they know they're an internet service, they know they have to keep the internet masses kind of happy with the service that they provide, and they are more than willing to take the time to contact you with their technical support. They know how to run their site, they know what can affect their broadcast or stream of a show, and they will more than likely come back to you within a couple of hours really with a great solution to the problem. And some of this actually really worked for me. I'm not technologically literate. I'm not the best though, so having someone sit down with a very general, not only just a very generally good level of skill with this type of thing, but someone who was able to communicate with me as well was very helpful. So I really can't fault the Crunchyroll service. It's just, sub versus dubbed anime. I'm a fan of dubs, especially Funimation dubs, so I'm looking forward to seeing Dragon Ball Super when it comes out with a Funimation sub. I know a lot of people aren't their biggest fan. I really like their stuff. It's very good for me. I enjoy it a lot, as opposed to other dubs. I've seen other dubs where they totally retake different pieces and scenes and change them. For example, Dragon Ball itself has several dubs over the course of the 90s, and one of them was a dub by a company called Ocean, who took out blood and gore. Dragon Ball isn't particularly a body show. There's energy blasts that just result in no blood being shed. However, there are some scenes that really need the visceral impact of blood and gore to pull them off, and taking those out kind of it diffuses a lot of the tension, takes away a lot of the drama of the show. So having a good dub like Funimation is what makes anime very enjoyable for me. They're very good at bringing a Western audience into a manga's adaptation into anime, and then that anime's adaptation into the West. Moving on from the kind of anime side of things, on my list of things to do was take a look at Dota 2, which is one of the more popular MOBAs in the world. Not the most popular, I think that title still belongs to League of Legends, which is huge, not only in the West, but in Korea we are talking about massive player base with a lot of very avid fans who will watch this not only as a game that they play, but as part of competitive play in esports, which is a very interesting phenomenon that's going to spread throughout the world. Is the idea that you can not only enjoy watching or playing a game, that you can enjoy it, you can watch the competitive giants of real masters of these games play against each other. And it kind of started through competitive gameplay just as an idea, and then through the mass broadcasting of stuff like Twitch has become huge. We're talking about tournaments attended by thousands, watched by millions over the internet, and they're fantastic and interesting. And the MOBA seems to be a new form of game that's really latched onto this idea of competitive online play and broadcasting, and is just doing fantastically well. And I was curious to see what the buzz was all about, and unfortunately I haven't found it in Dota. It may be that I'm not paying attention to it the right way, maybe I'm missing something, maybe I'm just not the intended audience, but after spending a couple of hours with it, I cannot see the appeal. I can see some of the appeal. I like to think I can find the appeal or the positive points in anything, but it's not for me. It's interesting though. The idea being very similar to, I guess you'd call them real-time strategy games. They have like you're controlling someone as they move through the world, kind of similar to World of Warcraft, in that you are clicking your way through the world. However, in this, the idea is that you're resource gathering through your hero, who is defeating minions of various stature, and then going toe-to-toe with another hero, typically controlled by another human player elsewhere on the map who's been doing the same thing. And then you have a central series of fights that happen throughout the world. It's very interesting. The maps have always kind of seemed very key to strategy. Your understanding of the game has to be very good to play at the top level, not only knowing what you're capable of doing, but what your opponent is capable of doing. Makes for very interesting gameplay, and you can see why it takes off on the online format, especially with viewers. If you have a skilled player, there's no reason that you couldn't watch that in a way. It's very entertaining for some people who kind of enjoy seeing, masters of a game. You are guaranteed, if someone is playing and willing to broadcast gameplay, that they have a massive understanding of the game. You're going to get a good show. As for the game itself, it's too slow paced, and because I'm not into it, I feel kind of out of the joke almost, which is very kind of disheartening for new players. You can get into it over the course of a couple of hours, and to find myself picking it up towards the end of my gameplay session. Full disclosure, only played for just a couple hours, maybe 3, maybe 4 at the most, but I can't see myself returning to the genre unless I can find a very interesting MOBA. I quite like the look of Smite, where you play as various gods. I find that kind of very funny and amusing, just the idea of you getting to play as a god and go around smacking other gods. That might appeal to me enough to get me into the genre again for another attempt, but until then I can't really say I enjoy the genre as it is. Maybe it was Dota. If you have a recommendation for a good MOBA, something to start on, I'm more than willing to take suggestions and return to the idea, but I can't see the appeal as much as some people can, and it's a shame because it's such a huge thing, and the people who enjoy it have such a fanaticism for it. I kind of want to be in part of that group just to see what it's like as a fan, and I'll maybe try and watch some more gameplay. It's very interesting as well. It's the centre of like 1,000 memes of gank mid. It's at certain points it's appeared on various pop culture TV shows, and it's stuff like The Big Bang Theory, for all we dislike it, has actually given some coverage to the genre at some points. I'd recommend giving it a go. Some of these are very cheap or free. The idea being that you get people in the door playing the game, and you from there can charge for stuff like microtransactions, which are a bit of an issue within the games industry these days. I don't entirely support all microtransactions, but as far as I'm aware, most MOBAs tend to be giving cosmetic microtransactions, which I have no problem with. If you want to pay extra money for a new hood and cloak for your rogue character in World of Warcraft, that's fine, but if you hold back certain levels of content from what should be a free game, that's when it becomes an issue for me. But most MOBAs seem to be aware of this and aware of how their PR is online, so if they do charge for microtransactions, most of it does seem to just be cosmetic. And part of the system of a MOBA is that for all that you're playing a character that's yours, you're not actually playing a recurring character. Your characters reset after every match. It becomes very interesting, the idea that you run through a series of skills and skill levels, and then it disappears. At the end of the match, you've put time into this character, you don't get every benefit out of it. It's a very interesting model, and it keeps people coming back for more. I struggle to think of anyone I could recommend it to, because most of the people I know who might play this game already play it or play some form of MOBA game, so I really struggle to make a recommendation to anyone for it. It's worth taking a look at because most of them are kind of free or very cheap to pick up. I know that Dota 2 was available on Steam when I tried it, absolutely no cost, so can't really complain about that. And then getting to play it for so little did make the experience a bit more enjoyable, because I knew that I didn't really have to pay any money for it. And you'd be surprised how much you're willing to give to a free game as well. The free-to-play strategy does make millions of pounds or dollars or whatever you want to measure it in. Some of these games can make billions despite not charging anyone at the door. It makes quite a lot, the idea that maybe you don't charge anyone at the door of the pub, but you then kind of charge a little bit more for drinks. It's a very interesting business model, and it has definitely paid dividends to some of these groups. And the tournaments and prizes that go on at these things are huge as well. There were several tournaments in the last couple of years that raked in. I believe there's been several of these tournaments with multi-million pound prizes, and it's a new age phenomenon, and it definitely has an appeal to certain. It's very popular from, I don't want to say the kids these days, but pretty much the kids love it. It's an appealing, quick game as well. You can probably knock out games in half hour, 20 minutes, which compared to say Minecraft, which I'm playing now, you can throw hours into this game and not feel as if he's accomplished as much as maybe a 20-minute game of Dota, which is, by the way, if anyone's interested, Defense of the Ancients. If you are going to maybe branch into one of these games, I definitely recommend taking your way through the tutorials. They are very well written. They know that not everyone's coming into this with a massive amount of experience, and they offer several parts of it, because the game, although it seems kind of simple with various things that you don't get to level up as much as you would in, say, World of Warcraft, you have various mechanics that need to be kind of studied and learned to really master the game, to get the higher levels of play and to make the game as immersive and enjoyable as possible. One thing I will say for the genre as well is that it's very mass market appeal that it has, and especially among young people, has definitely earned it some respect because it's actually paying for kids' college tuitions. The idea of esports is now possibly an idea for more than just people watching at home on Twitch. London, for example, has a cinema that's been converted into like a live broadcast cafe almost, that people can come and watch big tournaments and gameplay footage. Very interesting idea, and the fact that this has taken off in such a big way has resulted in American colleges offering to pay scholarships for esports. Very selective groups, very small amount of people doing this, but the fact that it's made it this far already is kind of amazing. It's one of those things that the age of the internet has managed to achieve, is that things can happen much faster if they prove popular. And it may seem strange and some people might scoff, but I quite like the idea that you can now be paid for a scholarship for more than just playing American football, playing basketball, and playing baseball. I think soccer as well as some scholarships, but it's very interesting to see that it's made it this far already. It's not a world dominating thing yet, but I'd give it a few years and we'll see how quickly the thing becomes mainstream. And it's now a good opportunity to kind of give it a go if you're not already in it in some form, just to see how it works. Check it out before everyone's sort of talking about it, so you can be the hipster amongst your friends who says, yeah, I was in the MOBAs a while back, before it got cool. It's definitely worth a look, I suppose, if you're into gaming. And we are aware, by the way, our podcast has become very gaming centric, but it's definitely is a key interest in part of our lives, so we kind of can't ignore it anymore. That we just kind of enjoy playing games to relax after a day at work or university or college or whatever, and it's very, very part of our lives, and a very entertaining place right now because the people who make games and the people who cover the games industry are kind of going nuts at the moment because there's so much just kind of going on. We've just finished with several big conferences and people seem to be still releasing new information about what they're working on and what's going on in the games industry, and with more light being shown, we have stuff like the Konami debacle where we have news coming out not only about games but about the studios that make the games as well, which becomes very interesting to us as people who are interested in the medium. And if you're not interested in the medium, we kind of apologise for boring you with the last couple of episodes. Very gaming heavy news, but definitely something we love to pay attention to, especially because a lot of the people involved in the games media coverage are very entertaining people. We're big fans of like various networks like Rooster Teeth, and we were both big fans of The Escapist for a while. Unfortunately, we kind of have lost track with The Escapist. Various members like Jim Sterling and Yatscross are still draw our attention, even though Jim Sterling is now running independently as Patreon YouTuber. Very, very enjoyable people that we just respect the opinions of and enjoy. However, to move away from things video game related, I imagine it'd be quite hypocritical of me to apologise and then just kind of keep going with the gaming related talk. I recently said as well that I'd managed to track down and reapply a lot of old music from my previous hard drive to the new one that I use, the new Seagate one. Very good model, very simple software, no hassle really with it at all. And I've been just listening to a lot of music lately, just returning to old favourites, tracks that I've found as well, just because I have a pretty extensive music collection and getting to come back is a lot of fun for me, just to realise that so many albums that I want to listen to, and then realising I only have so much time. I walk to work and it's a couple hours worth of travel, but it's not enough time in the world to absorb all the metal music that I really want to listen to, which is quite a lot. I don't think there's ever going to be enough time to enjoy all the music I really like. I'm definitely going to give it a try though. We've had several years in both myself and Dom listening to metal music, and there are occasionally little random albums that we enjoy from bands that we don't really pay attention to, and the old Shadow of Soul album, The War Within, has been getting a lot of heavy play recently just because it's there, and it's something I've missed for years. Kind of like, you don't see someone for ages and then you don't stop talking to them for years or for a couple of weeks, just because you haven't seen them so long. So this is kind of me going through that phase with a metal album. It's just an absolute blast album. It's just an absolute blast album. It's just an absolute blast.